everybody. Good to see you all. Right off the bat, excuse the surroundings and probably like the ambient sounds of cars passing by. Wi-Fi is not the best in Tulum, so I'm at a Starbucks. But regardless, we can practice anywhere. I wanted to start off today, right? Today's day 28, and the big point of this practice and this challenge isn't just to like afford you some really clear understanding on what KUMBHAKA is and how you can use it to empower your meditative experience, but also to inform you on how to sort of nurture a really powerful meditation practice. And so, as you all are very, very well aware of, at the end of our practices, we're spending a lot of time considering this concept of kaivalya, right? Kaivalya translates as aloneness, and in that idea, there is a world of like literal, sort of literal bits of advice that the culture and gurus and teachers sort of wish upon their students, in the sense that they wish them to evolve forward as a meditator and gain really beautiful and unique control over their mind and their thought process. And so a lot of these terms, as your practice develops and you start to collect more and more Sanskrit, a lot of these terms are both metaphorical but also deeply, deeply literal. And so Kaivalya as aloneness suggests an existential aloneness, that while I sit here in this public space, I'm actually alone. No one's paying attention, but people are probably paying attention, and the same goes for like me with them. And the same with you if you have family or if you have like a community and you have friends. There's a dimension of our being that no one has access to but ourselves. And that's really beautiful, and we attempt to access that when we practice. But it also, Kaivalya means literal aloneness, that you have to fight for and work to claim and reclaim your solitude, hence the tradition of retreat, right? And so just food for thought in terms of like a traditional practice and its like ascendancy into maturity. A traditional practice, at a certain point, the yogi or the meditator would take it upon themselves to either wander the land or seclude themselves in a cave or in a mountain for years to, sort of nurture this aloneness. And what happens in this aloneness is a profound sense of sincerity, a sincerity that someone that hasn't been alone or is unwilling to be alone in a literal way can never sort of, touch, because we are constantly, passively affected by our environments, by the messages of people, modern age, by the messages of brands, by the messages of buildings, by the messages of everything we see. And so aloneness, retreat, seclusion, very literal. And so with that, I just wanted to share a couple stories. One metaphor, one personal story, and one story that a student shared. The metaphor is, you have this mountain, right? And so the mountain represents life and represents community and represents work and represents passion, so on and so forth. And we are this close to this mountain, right? It's in our face, so much to the so that we can't see anything very clearly. We see the blur of slate and gray tones. And if we work to separate ourselves, aloneness, kaivalya, from this mountain, and we walk 10 feet back, the vision becomes a bit more clear. We might see the degrees of colors broken apart in the sediments of the rock. If we walk 5 feet back, or a mile back, 5 miles back, 10 miles back, at a certain point, you'll see the whole picture. You'll see the summit of the mountain. You'll see the slopes. You'll see the river pouring out of the mountain's edges. You'll see the forest below and the sky above. And this is sort of a visual way of representing the value of aloneness. In that 360-degree vision in which you are a part of, there is clarity, and in that sincerity. So the mountain metaphor. And for me, I had a personal experience of this sort of clarity from distance and aloneness. One of the times I went to India, I'd make a little hike every night to meditate under a stupa near a waterfall. And during the day, the street dogs were very nice and very kind, but at nighttime, they would become very protective over their territory. And every night I'd have to walk through them, and they'd growl and they'd bark and they'd sort of like encircle me. And the first few nights, it was, fairly terrifying to see, 8 dogs in a pack sort of approaching. But on those first nights, when I would be so far away in my aloneness, I would hear the dogs barking at other passersby, and from that distance, from that separation, which is correlated with kaivalya, aloneness, the barking dogs and the terror and the drama and the passion that is involved in being entangled in these scenarios dissipates. And so when we take the time to be alone, really, really alone, the dramas that we feel in our minds that we might think are inescapable or like an imminent part of life really have a lot to do with our social bonds and our bonds with cities and our bonds with work and our bonds with culture. And so aloneness really purifies us of this weight, which really is an anchor that stops the momentum of our spiritual experience. And then the last thing, probably the most practical bit of advice that I hope that sticks more than anything else in this conversation, one of your peers, one of these meditators right here, she was sharing how she went into the forest, did her breath work, and had a cathartic moment. We're looking for sincerity. We're looking to touch ourselves and recognize ourselves in really powerful ways, while at the same time separating from ourselves. Again, the mountain metaphors, we pull away, we see everything more clearly. Fight for your aloneness. Once this challenge is done, go into the forest, take a hike, sit on the beach by yourself when no one is there. That's why meditators say meditate at 3:45 in the morning, because no one is awake. The world is essentially yours. That's the beauty of waking up this early in the morning, because very few people are awake. And so find those pockets of literal solitude and practice in those spaces, in those times, and you will find, for whatever miraculous reason, the effects of your process are greatly heightened. And so aloneness, kaivalya, it's a cool idea, the existential sort of separation between all individuals, but it's also a very literal sort of token of advice. Cool. So with that, let's get into our 28th day. You're just going to do KUMBHAKA, super intense, maximum intensity for about 25 minutes, super long. We're going to really make the intro session very brief, just a couple breaths to honor Duk and honor our imperfection, and just a couple moments, oddly, to honor kaivalya at the end. But I hope that that word and that intention at the end of our practice means a little bit more to you now than it did, yesterday. All right, so good to see you all. Let's get into this. So you have your posture. Just be mindful of your lines, spine and arms. And right off the bat, negotiate your breath. Deep inhales into the diaphragm. Feel the rib cage swell dramatically, especially the bottom half of the rib cage. And in a few breaths, honor suffering, honor stress. And then done with that, right into KUMBHAKA, maximum intensity. And so kaivalya, in respect to your technique, is your technique are the barking dogs. If you can distance yourself from their barking and their snapping, the growls of CO2 build up. If you really can, it will become innocent. To do this physically and neurologically, visualize and attempt to feel the buzzing and tingling inside the tissues. Subtle sensations, inner dimensions. They are by design more neutral and experienced as more consistently euphoric. Good work. I'll chime back in 20 minutes. Long time.
Yeah, so they want to get more insight on how to market their product. Like, what are the best marketing tactics that they can use to sell their product, the orange juice product? They want to know what competitors are doing and what they're doing. Based off of that information, what kind of expertise do they look at? And I'm looking for what industry this person should be working in and a potential job that this person may have. An orange juice product, yeah. Orange juice, like what you drink? Like orange juice? It's okay. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's fine.
To move deeper into an experience of kaivalya, literal or symbolic, takes patience and determination.
Yeah, it's okay.
But notice at the same time that the instincts of your brain compel you to pay more and more attention to the environment, not just your environment, but my environment coming through the speakers. And so this is the magnetism that meditation is aiming to break down. Work to push your retentions a little more, create more internal physiological imbalance, collect CO2, and in that your brain will be forced to pay attention to your immediate inner body, helping you essentially forget the world.
Yeah. And what? So let's say if you had to look for this person on LinkedIn, what would you search?
Disregard the environment.
So on LinkedIn, you could search like with job title.
It is not the world's responsibility to be quiet for you to find silence. It's not the world's responsibility to be still for you to achieve stillness. And it's not the world's responsibility to constantly facilitate peace if peace is what you want. You can find it in the heart of a city, these meditative themes. But you can also fight to find them within landscapes and within certain hours of your day. Final push. With your next breath in, arms reach up and overhead. Interlace your fists, index fingers point up to the sky. As usual, use the posture to amp up willingness. Tighten through your muscles to restrict your body from either exhaling or inhaling, and in that, dig deeper into your retentions. Force yourself to look inwardly. Force yourself to look away from the magnetism of environment. Kaivalya. Almost there, almost there. And so the yogic belief is that the more acidic your body becomes, it is innately uncomfortable, generates that mind-body split. And for that reason, in very literal ways, they learn to devote themselves to discomfort and tiptoed into the worship of pain. Remove the pith from the reed, remove the seed from the husk, remove the mind from the body. A couple more minutes, 2 or 3 more rounds. Full expression, let your muscles burn. Straighten your arms, lift the chest. Okay, 1.5 more rounds. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. And then on that next round, just a final breath in and a final retention. After that, with dramatic grace, release your arms down to your legs. Deep, tranquilizing, steady breaths. Just focus on feeling your body and holding perfect stillness. And so now we are meditating. Absence of effort, absence of unconsciousness, absence of reactivity. Do your best to only feel. When the mind wanders into distraction, use the term kaivalya to bridge yourself back into the point, feeling. And through that, you become something like a sinking stone. Gently bring your hands to heart center, peak of the practice. And listen to your environment, including the environment coming through your speakers. And the lesson today was kaivalya, aloneness, and the deeper point is that we have to fight for that sanctuary of solitude, that it exists as an idea, as an existential experience, but also as a literal reality. The literal reality informs a practitioner how to ascend into their practice by really committing themselves to finding spaces and finding moments in the day where there are less people. Thumb knuckles to third eye center. Back to technique. Slow down your breath. Even in the midst of a weekday morning, kaivalya, in its essence, always exists deep within, separating from the mountain. Take one more inhale. With an exhale, release your wrists back to your knees, perfect posture. Listen to the world, and with an inhale, open your eyes. Hold on to that space.